Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. So I recently stumbled across a receipt of my Evolve 50 purchase, and I noticed that I bought them in September of 2018, so I've owned them for exactly 5 years now. So I just wanted to give you an update and tell you how my experience has been, the good, the bad, and everything in between. So here we go. The Evolve 50 was certainly not like the first column array on the market, but it's arguably the model that ignited the column array mania within the mobile DJ community. And it's easy to see why these are so popular with its minimalist, clean aesthetic, how easy it is to set up, and how it's able to pack a punch even with such a small package. And since Eevee has released the Evolve 50, there's been many new releases from other companies boasting louder sound and even improved sound quality. But despite that, the Evolve 50 remains a popular choice for mobile DJs today. It seems that Eevee has found the sweet spot in balancing portability, convenience, and loudness. And the Evolve 50s have been my go-to speaker for the past 5 years, and I love them. They are fantastic. So this is not going to be an in-depth review of all the different specs of the Evolve 50 because there's so many reviews and they've been on the internet for such a long time. But let me just quickly go through some of the key specs that you might find interesting, especially if you're considering purchasing them. They come in black or white, and they can be picked up for $18.99 new. But they have been around for so long that you can probably pick up a pair used. It breaks down into 3 parts: the top, the pole, and the sub. With a combo of magnets and built-in cables, this is probably one of the most, if not the easiest column array system to set up. This is extremely portable because the sub only weighs 44.5 pounds and the column itself only weighs 10 pounds. The sub is 20.9 inches by 13.6 by 18.5, and so it'll just easily fit in just about any vehicle that you have. I used it for years in my small sedan. It has a relatively small footprint at gigs, and it stands at about 6.8 feet tall, fully assembled, enough to project sound over people's heads. Kind of a small thing, but the sub is not a flat surface, which helps people think twice before setting their drink on your sub, but it still happens, unfortunately. It's happened to me a couple of times throughout the years, and they both ended up with the drink just sliding right off and crashing. And size aside, these things have an RMS of 1,000 watts with 127 SPL, which is pretty loud. I'll talk more about that in my 5-year update in a moment, but that's loud enough for most gigs up to 200 guests, which is coincidentally the majority of my gigs as a wedding and corporate DJ. Weddings with 150 guests or more is considered a large wedding. So while the Evolve 50 is remarkably loud for its size, it can't do everything. It can't do large school dances. It can't do large, big dance parties. So one of the guys I worked with figured that it'd be more cost efficient to have one mega system that would be perfect for events of all sizes. Because after all, you can just turn down the volume and you wouldn't have to own separate sound systems, one for really big events and then one for everything else. And you can't really argue with that logic. And he ended up getting the Eevee ETX system, 18-inch subs with 12-inch tops, which coincidentally is my sound system that I use for bigger events as well. And sometimes we even combine them for bigger events. So about after a couple years of using his ETX system and helping me at a few of my gigs with my Evolves, he decided that the Evolves were just so convenient, so nice to set up, and they really alleviated a lot of the stress of gigs because having 120-pound subwoofers, lugging those around is very difficult. So being able to have a 45-pound subwoofer means he could have a smaller car. He didn't have to bring his trailer, and yeah, I rarely see him use the ETX system these days. And the Evolve 50s have an onboard DSP to optimize the sound for music, speeches, and a bump and dance party. They have an integrated 3-channel mixer that connects to Bluetooth, and it has a built-in Bluetooth app that you can use to control the speaker settings, which I don't particularly find useful. I only used it once when I first got the speakers and I've never used it since. But it's cool that it has it. I know some people do actually like it and use it. So how have they held up in these past 5 years? So the tops come with these bags and the subcovers are purchased separately. For some reason, the top bags are kind of confusing. I've had to explain how to put the top in to almost every new assistant. And after 5 years, the handles have fallen apart, but the zipper is still working great and continues to protect my tops just fine. The speaker itself is really well weathered. Transporting them in their bags has kept them in good condition. They have been tipped over during transit more than once, and they don't have any gashes or large scrapes. There's been 0 mechanical issues connecting the tops and poles, and there's been 0 issues with the sound. They still sound as good as the day I got them. And these have been to so many gigs over the past 5 years, And honestly, I could see them lasting another 5 years or even longer. So the majority of people are like, yeah, the Evolve 50s like look good and they look like they're really easy to set up, but like how loud are they? Are they like good enough? And so I think that they're versatile enough to be good at the majority of small to medium sized events. But there are times I have taken them to like weddings and I regretted it. I wish I had brought my larger ETX system. Sometimes I find myself needing more headroom, more volume. I mean, the worst feeling as a DJ is when people are like, hey, can you turn it up? And you have the gain setting and the gain structure on your external mixer all the way up, and you cannot push any more air out of those speakers. But that hasn't happened too often, because even for like a 200 people wedding, it's rare that all 200 people are going to be dancing at the same time. But like I said, I think Evie has found the sweet spot for portability, volume, and convenience. Sure, there's other systems that have 15-inch subs and they have like higher SPLs, but they're heavier, bulkier, and sometimes require the sub to be connected to the top via an extra cable. Doesn't sound like a big deal, but once you get used to the awesomeness of the Evolves, then you start longing for those nice conveniences. You tend to miss it. Like the Maui 44G2 sub is nearly twice as heavy and twice as big, and the RCF Evox 12 require the top to be connected to the sub with a cable. In my view, just my view, I mean, you can think differently, I'm not going to get offended, but in my view, if a column array isn't easy to transport and set up, then it almost eliminates all the benefits of having one versus like a traditional top and sub. Yes, there's like sound dispersion, and I don't really consider aesthetic like a huge factor because aesthetic is extremely subjective. So what you find really nice, a client might be indifferent to or think is uglier. Because I remember like the Turbo Sound 2000 was the main competitor of like the Evolve 50 back 5 years ago, and people hated the subwoofer with like a skinny stick sticking out of it. They thought it looked like a marshmallow with a toothpick. And now we have like the Mauis, which is their whole design, but that has been like one of the more popular column array systems in the past couple of years. So aesthetics are completely subjective and subject to change, so I wouldn't just pick a system solely based on that. And so while I think that column arrays have evolved over the past 5 years, and while the market was very sparse 5 years ago, now it is filled with competent competitors, I still think that the Evolve 50 has a place in the arsenal of mobile DJs, and I still think it is a good buy. They aren't a one-trick pony, but they are pretty darn close. I still love my Evolve 50s, and they'll continue to be my go-to speaker. But I still will continue to have a secondary sound system for those bigger events where the Evolve 50s just aren't going to cut it. And to be completely frank, the ETX system just does not come out all that often. And Evie has come out with a couple new iterations of the Evolve 50. They have the Evolve 30, a smaller, more compact version, as well as like the Evolve 50M, where it has a more robust integrated mixer with 6 channels. So what are your thoughts on the Evolve 50? Because I know that's been kind of controversial because a lot of people have fallen favor out of them wanting like that headroom. So do you have any Evolve 50s? What are your thoughts on them? Did you end up switching to another column array system? Let me know what you did down in the comments below. And please smash like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.